Okay, so let's look at our solution. Oh, print is a bit small. Okay. Part A. Now, there's an obvious cost involved in setting up internal audit in an organization. And so it is typical to ask what factors signify the need for internal audit before one is established. Several factors influence the need for internal audit. So we're going to mention the factors and then particularly related to the case. 1. The scale, diversity, and complexity of the company's activities. The larger, the more diverse, and the more complex a range of activities is, the more there is to monitor. Right? So because what is the more opportunity that there are for certain things to go wrong. The second one, the number of employees. As a proxy for size, the number of employees signifies that larger organizations are more likely to need internal audit to underpin investors' confidence than smaller concerns. 3. Cost-benefit considerations. Management must be certain of the benefits that will result from establishing internal audit, and it must obviously be seen to outweigh the costs of doing so. 4. Changes in the organizational structures, reporting processes, or underlying information systems. Any internal or external change is capable of changing the complexity of operations and accordingly the risk. A next consideration, next factor that would influence the decision for internal audit, changes in key risks could be internal or external in nature. The introduction of a new product, entering a new market, a change in any of the pest or pestle factors, or changes in the industry might trigger the need for internal audit. Problems with, and another factor, problems with existing internal control systems. Any problems with existing systems clearly signify the need for a tightening of systems and increased monitoring. And the final factor we're going to mention here that would influence the need for internal audit is an increased number of unexplained or unacceptable events. System failures or similar events are a clear demonstration of internal control weakness. Now, based on all these, let's remember that particular scenario that we had to take our points from once we did the earlier part. To assess the need, in the case of Franks and Fisher, it highlights 3 factors that would underpin the need to establish internal audit. 1. There has been growth in the number of products, activities, and processes in recent time, thereby complicating the internal environment and introducing more opportunity for internal control failure. Another is that there have been problems with internal control systems, like the line stoppage and Mr. Kumas' comment that problems with internal control in a number of areas. And thirdly, finally, there was an unacceptable event, the line stoppage, that was attributed to poor internal control. Mr. Kumas confirmed this with his opinion about a great need for internal audit. So in applying it to the case, there were 3 of the factors that were mentioned of the 7 above, 3 main factors in Frank and Fisher's case that would show that yes, there is a need for internal audit. Now part B is telling us to assess whether or not they need. Which one? Let's look back at the question. So part B said, construct the argument in favor of appointing the new internal auditor from outside the company rather than promoting internally. So let's discuss part B. In practice, a decision as such, this one, will depend on a number of factors, including the supply of required skills, internal and in the external job markets. Right? In constructing the case for an external appointment, however, the following points can be made. Right? So in constructing a case that, look, they should get someone from externally, the following points can be made. Primarily, an external appointment would bring detachment and independence. Right? An external appointment would bring detachment and independence. That would be less likely with an internal one. Firstly then, an external appointment would help with independence and objectivity. So an external appointment would help with independence and objectivity. What it would be doing is avoiding the possibility of auditor capture. Right? He or she would owe no personal loyalties nor favors from previous positions. So no one could capture them and say, look, here what? Remember what I had done for you earlier. Remember that I've done you a favor the last time. I saved your job the last time. Right? So with an external one, he owes no one no favors. Similarly, he or she would have no personal grievances nor conflicts with other people in past disputes or arguments. So he or she, an external person coming in, would not have a reason to have an agenda or an ultimatum to ensure that, look, I'm going to ensure that I give a bad report on this particular person's department because he did something to me that hurt me for life. So some benefits would be expected from the new broom effect, that the appointment would see the company through fresh eyes. So this new person is believed would see the company through a pair of fresh eyes. He or she would be unaware of vested interests. Right? So this is how we could build our argument for getting an external appointment. He or she would be likely to come in with new ideas and expertise gained from other situations. And finally, in our argument, to support an external appointment rather than an internal one. Finally, as with any external appointment, the possibility exists for the transfer of best practice in from outside. Right? So transferring in best practice from outside. A net gain in knowledge for Franks and Fisher. So it would result in a net gain in knowledge for Franks and Fisher. Part C now. Mr. Kumas, as a finance director, said, look, the internal auditor must report to me. Let's critically discuss this particular point in Part C. The first thing to say that Mr. Kumas' belief is inappropriate and it would be unacceptable for the internal auditor to report to a divisional director